What's up, Yinzers, Yinzettes? Welcome back to Pucks and Nat, where we will give you everything from the last week in Penguins hockey, give you the downtown breakdowns of everything that's going on with the team. It's been a pretty good week, so we're going to talk about that pretty good week. One of their goaltenders making history, as I'm sure you're already well aware of. And then we're also going to talk about the supposed fire sale that might be coming up within the next month. So stick around. We'll talk about all that, much more in that. Perfect timing.
Oh, we killed it.
What's up, everybody? How you doing this week? We hope you're staying warm out there. We know there's a it's really cold here in Pittsburgh, but anyway, I'm wearing my wool sweater today. Hope you're doing well. Kelsey Surmat's Hockey News. Read my stuff on the Hockey News Penguins website. You can find me on X. I'm not going to go through the whole spiel, but just look up my name. You can see it on the banner. If you have any questions, like I said, when you subscribe to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can go ahead and drop any questions in the comments. We love answering questions. But yeah, I'm here with co-host Hannah Kirkell, and she is back in Pittsburgh indoors. And I think you were last week too, but that's not the big news. The big news is she has a new gig. What's up, Hannah?
No, the big news is that I'm indoors and warm. But also, don't complain, Kelsey. Right now it's 12. That is warm compared to what it was earlier this morning when it was like -5.
Yeah. I think there's been snow on the ground for about 3 weeks.
I don't think it stopped snowing for a month.
Yeah.
I don't like this. This is not inhabitable for humans. Or if it's inhabitable for humans, it's not inhabitable for me. So that's why I'm really thrilled to announce my new job. That and other reasons, of course. But, you know, I'm covering the Vegas Golden Knights now, which is, I mean, this is incredible. I don't often struggle with words, but I don't think I've been this happy with a job ever.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled. I'm beyond thrilled, humbled, honored, grateful. Break out the thesaurus, all of that, me. Yeah. So if you are interested at all in the plights of the Vegas Golden Knights, you can go ahead and drop a follow to the Vegas Hockey Now Facebook page or Twitter. I post everything on both. So that's the breakdown with the new gig. But don't worry, the podcast is staying. I've answered more comments than I was expecting. People were worried about the podcast. The podcast is staying. Don't worry. Listen, I've gone outside in like 12-degree weather for this podcast. I'm not going to leave this podcast. This podcast, why is it doing that? This podcast is staying. Sorry, if you're listening to the audio.
I mean, it was good timing. It was like, I'm not leaving.
If you're listening to the audio, a random thumbs up just appeared on my screen and distracted me because I have the concentration of a goldfish.
That's fine. Like
but yeah, podcast is staying. Even if I don't get a chance to watch the games, I usually can watch them back. ESPN's making that a lot harder, though. They used to hold the games all season, and now it's just 3 days. Did you know that, Kelsey? And that's ridiculous.
It's just a playback. Playback is a travesty. Cool. With hockey now, they don't have it on anything. Honestly, I use Sportsnet. I have the subscription to Sportsnet. Maybe something to consider because I think
I might need to make the jump.
Yeah, because they still have the playbacks. I think from like a week-ish back. So
good. No.
So you should be able. I think you can still watch. I have to I only watch live. I haven't. Few times I've gone back into the Sportsnet app in particular to play back too much, obviously, unless I'm analyzing something, which we do from time to time on the show. So that is part of our job. But yeah, I think they play. You can play back a few games on Sportsnet.
That's something to look at. Okay.
Yeah, but in any case, I mean, Hannah watches enough hockey. She is a hockey fan and a hockey analyst through and through. So her
So
insights, even if she's not catching all 60 minutes all the time,
she
are going to
catches
be
as
just
much
as
as she
golden.
can and tries to find replays of what she did not catch.
Absolutely.
Always
And
tries. Is not always successful. Always tries. Nice
she's
girl, tries hard, loves the game.
yeah, but she's doing a great job. Check out her stuff on Vegas Hockey Now. She's putting out some really, really good stuff. And for, a pretty fun team. Hasn't been that way for a little bit for last several
Yeah,
games
they're in
or
a little
so,
bit of a
but
slump. They're like 1-6 in their last 7 games. They've lost 4 games in a row for the first time this season. So,
yeah. Well,
which is, for most teams, that's fine. For the Buffalo Sabres, that would be good. But the Golden Knights simply aren't accustomed to not winning. It's fascinating, really, just like how well they keep doing. And just like the reclamation project. Sorry, I'm talking about Vegas. That's my
no,
bad,
keep
guys.
going. That's your gig.
But like, I mean, you look at a lot of these guys, and some of them aren't with the team anymore. But like Chandler Stevenson, he went from a 4th line center. He went from a grinder to a really good player with them. Brett Howden, he went from a 4th liner with the Rangers, which okay, the Rangers. But now, I mean, he's got 16 goals. He's sick right now, so he might not make the trip. I don't know, but I'm having
Awesome
fun.
stuff, though. Yeah. Glad to hear it, and that's awesome. So congrats to Hannah, and follow her stuff. So we are going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about the week in review as we normally do. And if you have been paying attention to the last week, this was a pretty good week for the Penguins. It started off last Friday in Buffalo, and obviously, Hannah, the big story from that game was just the fact that they won it. Nothing significant happened in that game.
Well, they scored 3 power play goals. That's pretty significant, I'd say.
Obviously, yeah, that's definitely the news of the day.
But that's the extent
but...
of it. Raquel scored, Glass scored, Russ scored. All those were on the power play. So Anthony Pavillier scored, and that's it. That's all who scored. So
Yeah,
we move on to Saturday.
Just kidding. All right. So Friday, we probably witnessed one of the best goaltending performances probably that I've ever seen, just all around.
Well, you say we witnessed. I was watching the Carolina Hurricanes play the Vegas Golden Knights. I was not witnessing greatness. I was witnessing the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, well, that's
But I caught the game. Don't worry.
But yeah, so on Friday, Alex Nedeljkovic, which this is the first game since Tristan Jarry was placed on waivers. So something just kind of to note there. This was the first game the Penguins had played since Tristan Jarry was placed on waivers. First game of their road trip that spans 15 days, 7 games. And they went into Buffalo. As Hannah said, all that good stuff happened. 3 power play goals, goals from different parts of the lineup. But
penalty
they also
kill was
got
4 for 5. By the way,
yeah.
penalty kill 4 for 5. Been struggling recently, but 4 for 5 in that game.
Yeah, baby steps.
Baby steps.
But yeah, so the 5th goal was scored by Alex Nedeljkovic. Alex Nedeljkovic scored a goal. He had an assist earlier in the game. And that assist came on, who was it? Was it Cody Glass's goal? Yeah, Cody Glass's power play goal.
And that made him the first ever goaltender in history to record a 2-point night.
Yeah, goal
which
and
is crazy considering how many points some of the goaltenders of old put up. Like Hextall, and I mean, really, Hextall is the only one that came to mind. But
yeah, so he actually he was the first goaltender in NHL history to record a goal and an assist. I do think Tom Barrasso had 2 assists in the game, and
first since
Tom Barrasso,
yeah. But yes,
I don't
goal
know.
and assist.
Marty Brodeur might have done it. Yeah, but first goaltender in NHL history to record a goal and an assist in the same game. I mean, he also had a 42 save effort. 40 save effort versus Buffalo. My bad.
And he became the first goaltender ever to score at all 3 levels of professional hockey. He scored a goal in the ECHL. He scored 2 goals in the AHL, one with Carolina's AHL team. I believe that was the Chicago Wolves at the time. I don't
Was
know.
it
Carolina's
Chicago?
always switching them. Sometimes they don't even have one. Anyway, and
Also
obviously,
Charlotte.
he scored one in Wilkes-Barre as well. And now at the NHL. So, congratulations, Alex Nedeljkovic. You have 4 goals in your professional hockey career.
Listen, in another hockey life, he was a sniper somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Like that was an unbelievable play
Good
too. Like
Lord.
he took it behind the net. He spins around, fires it from 200 feet, and then he takes a hit to make a play.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, really, nobody's
like,
talking about that. He got
bullseye.
bowled over. He might not have even seen it going.
No, he said that he took the hit and then he stood up. He didn't see where like the puck until it was like crossing the opposing blue line. And he was like, he said, I didn't even know if it was going to go in because it was kind of just like, you know, flat on the ice at that point. And then he just said that he saw Eric Carlson's like arms go up. And then that's when he made a beeline for the bench. And celebration was top tier.
Oh, that was great.
It was top tier. Jumped into the bench.
Listen, great celebration, but also imagine being a forward or a defenseman sitting on that bench and suddenly a goaltender with full heavy gear just runs up to you and dive bombs on top of you. I mean, that might have killed Bo Bennett.
It may have. Shout out Bo Bennett.
Shout out Bo Bennett. How's Sunshine doing? Anyway,
but
moving on to the less nice Saturday game. I mean, they just couldn't get anything going. The final score sheet says it was 4-1. Really, it was 2-1. Chris Letang took a dumb penalty at the end of the game. Pierre-Luc Dubois scored in the last 3 seconds left on the power play, I think it was.
Something like that.
It was not many seconds. And then Brandon Duhaime got the empty netter. So we really just saw a defensive masterclass, really. The Capitals, of course, were better defensively than the Penguins. But the Penguins were... It looked like they got some momentum from Yoel Blomqvist and the saves that he was making. There were some loose times, but they tightened up.
Yeah, I agree. And, Blomqvist was good in that game. I mean,
he was
once again,
a lot better than his stats would indicate because of that late power play goal and all that.
Yeah, and he made a few key saves for them, too. I mean, he made a breakaway save on Tom Wilson that was shorthanded at one point. And that was kind of one of those saves that you mark down and say, remember this one, because Penguins got some pretty good momentum. They actually played pretty well in this game. The problem is, like you mentioned, the Capitals are just such a good defensive team. I mean, they play so well in their own zone. They were getting in every passing and shooting lane. They were getting sticks on everything. I have to look again. I don't have the stat in front of me, but they blocked a lot of shots in that game too. I think they blocked 18 shots or something, some crazy number.
Listen,
so
I don't know who's in the running for Jack Adams. In my mind, if it doesn't go to Spencer Carberry, I'm not going to say the word rigged, but rigged. I mean, he's got Ovi blocking shots. He's got Pierre-Luc Dubois back checking. He's got Ovi back checking. He's got Ovi forechecking. Yeah, if Spencer Carberry doesn't win the Jack Adams, I don't know. I truly don't know.
I completely agree with you. And, I think what's crazy, if you think about where this team was even a year ago, I mean, this team was one of the worst teams to make the postseason in the modern era. This was not a very good team last year.
No, I know.
A calendar year later, he has managed to completely just change the identity of that team. not only are they hard to play against defensively, are they committed defensively, they're a very good defensive team. They also have some speed. And, this isn't something you normally say about a Capitals team, but they can get end to end pretty quickly. They're, we can go on and on about semantics and just, of their long-term IR situation. I know that's kind of a point of contention, but regardless, I think
listen,
Carberry has gotten the best out of this roster, and they made all the right moves to get this team in the spot that it is too. But you have to give credit where it's due to the coach and these players for really buying into the system.
No, absolutely. And about the IR situation, I mean, it's not like they're just stashing players who are old and bad on injured reserve.
Yeah.
Like, no, these injuries are really serious. I remember at the end of the playoffs last year, some reports came out where TJ Oshie said he couldn't pick up his children. He would have to lie down on the bathroom floor because his back was so bad. Nick Backstrom, you don't really come back from a surgery like that ever, really, especially not at this age. So yeah, yes, they're on injured reserve, but they legitimately cannot play, for health safety reasons. This is not a no.
Vegas situation.
Don't say that. That's
Excuse me, Hannah.
Don't say mean things, Kelsey. Things that
Not
are
mean things.
And quite frankly untrue.
But regardless, yes, that's an important distinction here. I mean, if TJ Oshie and Nicholas Backstrom could be playing, they would.
I'm sure they would.
This isn't a situation where they're completely just taking advantage of that. But
they're not going to come back for the playoffs, and if they are, it's going to be close to biblical miracle level.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
I mean, you hope it's.
Yeah, obviously you hope they can.
You hope it's a better situation, but
they've both been real players in their career. It's really a shame to think that Ovi's going to break the record without Backstrom on the team, and I say this with so much sincerity. It is a tragedy that Ovi is going to break the record without Backstrom on the ice.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's an unfortunate situation, and you hope that they can come back at some point. Like you said, it's not looking too promising, but never say never.
Also, pivoting really quickly, just throwing this in before we get to Monday. You talked about last year the Capitals being one of the worst playoff teams ever. Well, now guess who's got the best goal differential in the league? Ding, ding, ding! It's the Washington Capitals.
Crazy.
They're plus 51. That's above Winnipeg, who is plus 49. Next is the Tampa Bay Lightning, who's plus 36. So, I mean, it's really Washington, Winnipeg, and nobody else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They're young guys have all panned out. They're all doing awesome things for them this season. Yeah. And then you also have guys like Chickering, guys like Roy that came in and really, helped solidify their identity. Like I said, it's just amazing to me how much different this team is, just identity, systems wise, structures wise, even since last season. I mean, it's a pretty drastic difference. All credit to Spencer Carberry there, as you said, and he should be the clear Jack Adams winner. But anyway,
I really wonder sometimes if Ovi takes a look down the bench and he's like, "Who the bejesus are these people?" It's literally him, John Carlson, Tom Wilson, and
a bunch of guys.
And Lars Eller, I guess, who's back. He was the cup run.
Yeah.
And Martin Ferravari, who lives to irritate Sidney Crosby. Is that it? Is that it? I think that's it.
I mean, pretty much. That's it. Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, Jacob Vrana, but he's been either a healthy scratch or in the AHL. I don't know what the deal is, but I know he is on the roster technically.
Yeah. So Nick Dowd, I think, is
Nick Dowd.
Yeah, he's still there too.
Arguably the best fourth line center in the league, by the way. Or fourth line player, wherever he is in the lineup, wherever he is, either on the wing or whatever.
Yeah, but they've got a good team over there, and honestly, that's one of those losses. You didn't expect the Penguins to win every game on this road trip.
God, no.
I didn't
even expect them to win in Buffalo.
Well, that's the one game I think, they played pretty well against the Capitals the first time they got the win. Joel Blomqvist also got that win, but you didn't expect them to sweep this season series or anything. So that's one of those losses that you kind of just put behind you and move on to the next one, which they did.
Which they absolutely did.
Yes.
This game, I was actually able to catch most of because the Golden Knights game was at 6 or 3 their time. And the Penguins game was not till 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 their time. So I was able to watch it, which was fun.
Yeah, and it was this might have been
for sure.
This was the game to watch, and 5-1 win against the LA Kings. And just for reference too, the LA Kings were 14-2-1 on home ice prior to this game. I mean, they were unbeatable on home ice. I believe they had a 9-game winning streak on home ice prior to facing the Penguins. This was their first game back on home ice since the wildfires started, ravaging the area. And obviously, hope for the best with what's going on there. Everybody's in our thoughts over there. And the players from both teams adorned LA Fire Department hats and patches and stuff during the game. So that was pretty cool to see. And they have a new center ice logo. So there was a lot of high emotion in this game from their end and just from everything else. And the Penguins, honestly, they dominated
took all that emotion out of the building. I mean, not out of the building because the crowd was trying to get them going, but they took it all away from the LA Kings.
Yeah.
Listen, going into this game, the Penguins do not have a good record when they play the LA Kings on ceremony nights. I am sure we all remember the Dustin Brown jersey retirement ceremony where Sidney Crosby got kicked out of the game for the first time, and Adrian Kempe scored a second period natural hat trick in the span of like 12 and a half minutes or something ridiculous, and 4 goals in the game total, and it was a 6-0 crushing defeat. I'm sure we all remember that. I certainly do not, of course.
Adrian Kempe scored a goal against the Penguins? What are you talking about?
On that note, obviously the next ceremony night with the Penguins and the Kings, Jágr, who scored the only 2 goals of the game. So in three ceremony games against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Adrian Kempe has 7 goals in 3 games. 7 goals.
Just crazy.
I bet Adrian Kempe lies awake at night sometimes and thinks, man, if only I played in the Metropolitan Division. He'd win the Rocket.
Listen, he would, and it would he would win the Rocket by playing the Penguins alone.
Yeah,
if he played for the New York Rangers or the Washington Capitals or any of the Metro teams, he'd score. It'd be a hat trick every game against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
At least a hat trick every game.
Yeah,
I think I saw he has 8 points in his last 4 games against the Penguins. He loves the Penguins, and he did also on Monday because he did score the only Kings goal of the game.
5-on-3.
Yeah, I mean, this game was really, really big for the Penguins, and not just because they won it. Kevin Hayes opened the scoring with what would have been a beautiful goal, except that Joel Edmondson accidentally put it into his own net. Still a beautiful move, still great, still counts.
Another power play goal for the Penguins.
Another power play goal for Kevin. And then, Sid scored. It was his first in 6 games. Gino scored. It was his first in 6, technically, because that goal had been stat corrected. It went in off his knee or something. So if you factor out the stat correction, it was his first goal in 11 games. So that could be really, really big.
Yeah.
And then Cody Glass scored. Anthony Beauvillier scored a greasy net front goal.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Penguins' best game of the season.
Yeah.
It was also the Kings' worst game of the season. I don't want to say that. They've got some... No. Anyway.
Pretty close, though, I think.
It was definitely on there, on that list, for sure.
Yeah. And something that, you really like to see, especially from this game, not only was it a full 60-minute effort by the Penguins, it was a full four-line effort from the Penguins
Yes, it
too.
was.
All four lines were contributing to this win, even that detested by fans fourth line of Matt Nieto, Blake Lizotte, Noel Acciari. They even did a lot of good things in that game and were driving play. I mean, the Penguins played most of the evening in LA's zone.
Yeah.
They had a few spurts of momentum when Adrian Kempe scored on that 5-on-3 power play. Two kind of ill-advised penalties by P.O. Joseph and Owen Pickering, not great penalties to take, but they get that power play, the 5-on-3 for well over a minute. They score, and then they still have like a minute and a half of regular power play time because they scored so quickly. The Penguins managed to kill that off. So at the time it was 3-1. And then Cody Glass came up with that huge goal at the end of the
was big.
second period, because that was really the only point in the game where LA started to take some momentum, but the Penguins responded in a good way and they scored that late goal in the second. It was history from there. But you like to see this depth scoring from the Penguins.
You do.
They got contributions from up and down their lineup. Kevin Hayes, 2 points on the night, a goal and assist. He continues to play really well in that third line center role. So just really good stuff all around from them. Another good
we're not going to say we told you so, but we did. We did say, you guys are being ridiculous. Kevin Hayes is not going to be as bad as you're all screaming about on the internet. Plus, they got paid a second-round pick to take him.
Yeah.
They got paid.
Yeah.
Paid. Anyway, I just, Kelsey, I really detest when people are mad that the Penguins, who are not in a position to buy, when they make deals like that Hayes deal, when they get something to take a player, people are still mad about it. Oh, he traded for Kevin Hayes. He was paid to take Kevin Hayes, and Kevin Hayes has been good.
Yeah. And don't forget that even just a couple years ago, Kevin Hayes was an all-star.
Yeah.
This isn't like they're taking some pylon who's accomplished nothing in his NHL career. It was a rough year from last year, but I think the role that the Penguins are deploying him in now is kind of conducive to his success. He's being put on a line with players too who can really skate, and if you can point to a weakness in Hayes' game, it's his skating. But you've seen over the last couple games that assist on Cody Glass's goal was a great play. I mean, and that was the result of his skating and his ability to really use he used his body to kind of swerve around the LA defender. He's
good at that. He's good at using his body. He's got a big body and he knows how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other ways that we've talked about this. We talked about this last week. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you don't have to be a fast skater to play a speed game. Kevin Hayes is a smart hockey player, and he's proving in that role that he can be productive and he can be a difference maker for the Penguins. I mean, he's been playing some good hockey for them since coming back into the lineup against Florida on January 3rd. So we'll get into a little bit more of a couple other players from that game later, but we do want to take a second to talk about the goaltending.
Yes, we do.
Yes, because obviously, as we mentioned at the top of the show, these are the 3 games that the Penguins have played since Tristan Jarry was waived. He cleared waivers, was sent back to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. And, in 3 games since, Alex Nedeljkovic especially, but even Joel Blomqvist, they have had a above 900 save percentage in each start. Yep. They're getting big timely saves for the Penguins when the team needs them to. They're getting some legitimately good goaltending right now. And
they are.
And just for reference with Ned in particular. So Ned had save percentages in these last 2 games of 952 and 962 respectively. And he's only allowed 3 goals on 68 shots. 3 goals on 68 shots, Hannah. Is that good?
It's better than what I could do, I'll tell you that much.
But yeah, so goaltending's been big for the Penguins, and Hannah, I don't know if you want to add anything about Ned or about Blomqvist or just what you've been seeing from them the last 3 games.
Well, I mean, last night against LA, or not last night, my goodness. The days are all blending together. That's my bad. On Monday against LA, Ned was he was big. I mean, because the Kings weren't always out of this game, you know? I mean, he made a couple really big saves. The Penguins built on that. Um, I didn't honestly get to watch a ton of the Capitals game because again, the Golden Knights were also playing. So I was, focusing on that. But Blomqvist, from what I saw, was not the reason they lost that game. Not even a little bit.
No.
Not even remotely close. And even one of the goals that beat him didn't one of the goals go off one of the Penguins' sticks and in
Yeah.
the Chikrin goal, the first one?
Yeah. Yeah.
It went off of a stick or a leg or
I think it was
something.
Graves, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know, but either way, like, even the ones that did beat him, it wasn't clean and it wasn't like it wasn't his fault, I'm going to say. So he was good, and then obviously Ned on Ned on Friday against Buffalo, he was fine, average. He was great. 40 saves, a goal, an assist.
Yeah.
2.33 goals saved above expected. That seems pretty good, even to a skeptic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we've talked endlessly about how much goaltending has let this team down this season. And sometimes even in analytics, even in the I mean, to a certain extent, just in any analysis of goaltending and everything, there aren't too many stats that quantify goalies making big saves. I mean,
No.
you can talk about high danger saves
Yeah, but
and
even
stuff like
then,
that.
that's
That's
not necessarily
quantifiable to an
always a
extent.
big save.
Yeah. But the thing is, the thing that's been haunting the Penguins with their goaltending has been those timely
Yep.
saves. Like they just don't seem to get those timely saves, those momentum shifting saves
Yep.
that they can really build off of, like you said, and help turn the momentum. Because, like I said, even in that Capitals game that they ended up losing, Blomqvist makes that shorthanded breakaway save on Wilson, and the Penguins see some momentum from that. They didn't obviously weren't able to capitalize off of it, but they got the momentum. LA, same thing. Ned made a bunch of big saves. Same thing against Buffalo. Those are the kinds of saves that they've been missing from their goaltending situation
Yeah.
for a couple years now. So there's not too many ways to quantify that on a stat sheet or in
Yeah.
analytics, but those
And if
those
there
are
was,
momentum
I
changing.
think the Penguins would be a lot better in it right now than they were a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
speaking of things that are doing better, you talk about trending up, Kelsey?
yeah, nice segue.
Thanks. I was working on my transition game. Kelsey, who's your trending up player of the week?
My trending up player of the week is Anthony Beauvillier. All right, flowers for Beau, part 2. Yeah, so I think Anthony Beauvillier is somebody that's flown under the radar a lot for the Penguins this season. And we've talked about him a couple times. His game's kind of been up and down this season, but I'll get into why I think that's the case. But just a couple raw stats. Now, I'm not going to dig too much into analytics because he's mid in pretty much all of them. So I'm just focusing on pretty raw stats here. So he does have 11 goals, 15 points in 48 games in the season. Doesn't seem like much. But when you kind of break down his production in terms of where he's been placed in the lineup, what his role's been, it kind of starts to tell a little bit of a story. So he scored 6 goals in his first 19 games, and that was primarily as part of it in the top 6, in a top 6 role. And then he scored 2 goals in his last 3 games. We didn't mention this earlier, but Rickard Rakell did miss the Los Angeles game. He went back home to Pittsburgh for family reasons, so obviously we hope all's okay there. But in Raquel's absence, Anthony Beauvillier slotted alongside Sid. He was with Gino the last couple games before that. But 2 goals in his last 3 games as part of the top 6. He had 2 points against LA. A really nice assist on Sid's goal as well. So, and then he's only had 3 goals in 25 games otherwise. So, I guess what I'm trying to say here is we've talked
right now.
Yes. But also, like, we've talked a few times this season, just spread out, about role placement with players. And, we've talked about the 4th line and how the 4th line has a purpose and there are certain players for that role. I think Beauvillier is kind of one of those examples of a guy who hasn't necessarily always been put in the right positions to succeed this season. Because, 8 goals in 21 games as part of the top, or 22 games, my bad. 8 goals in 22 games as primarily part of the top 6. Those are pretty good numbers. And obviously, when you're talking in terms of Sid, there's a reason he's playing with Raquel and Rust on a regular basis, right? They're one of the most productive lines the Penguins have had in recent memory. At times, they've been one of the most productive lines in the league this season. But Beauvillier has some pretty legitimate chemistry with Sidney Crosby. And I don't think that's a coincidence either, because if you look at the way that Beauvillier plays and the strengths of his game, he plays a speed game, obviously. He's got speed, but he's a really good player down low. He works really well below the goal line. He goes to the net, and, we saw on his goal against Los Angeles, that was the result of him winning a battle at the net front in the blue paint. Regaining control of his stick and pouncing on a rebound that was just a loose puck that was sitting behind who started that game? Anyway, sorry, I'm drawing
Kelsey,
a blank.
All the days blend together. All the games blend together. I don't know what I had for dinner last night.
Yeah. Anyway, so, his style of play, I think, marries a lot with Sid, because obviously he's not Sidney Crosby, but he does a lot of the stuff that Crosby does well. He does well as well. I said well a lot in that sentence, but
he does.
He does a lot of those things well. He forechecks well. He's good down low. On his assist on Sid's goal, he forced a turnover. He took the puck below the goal line. He had kind of a hard-working sequence there below the goal line to get the puck to Grzelcyk along the wall. Grzelcyk one-times it, Sid tips it. I think there's a reason that he plays well in that role alongside Sid specifically. He's done some good things next to 71 as well, but I guess my point here is this is a guy that the Penguins are probably going to be looking to flip at the trade deadline. You want to get as much value out of him as possible. If the Penguins want to get value out of Anthony Beauvillier, keep him in the top 6. When he's been there this season, he's producing in a top 6 role. And you can say what you want about what you thought of the signing over the summer. You can say what you want about the type of player he was last season, whatever you want to say. But the fact of the matter is he's producing in those top 6 minutes this season. And I think the Penguins were on to something back in training camp when they had him working with Sid. Primarily on Sid's line in training camp. And that line of Beauvillier, Sid, and Raquel has statistically, analytics-wise, now in a small sample, been the best line for the Penguins this season. So I'm not saying you split Raquel, Sid, and Rust. I am saying, though, maybe you consider keeping Beauvillier in that top 6 role next to Gino. It gets a little tough because Glass and Tomasino are playing pretty well too. But, I just think it's worthwhile to keep him in a spot where he's actually succeeding. Because once he gets dropped down to those bottom 6 minutes, I don't think he's as effective as a player. And he's certainly not as productive.
Oh, no, absolutely not. One more thing. I've mentioned this before. I don't know if it was on this or a different podcast or whatever. I think a lot of the reason that Beauvillier and Sid play so well together is because a lot of the things Beauvillier does well, those are things that Jake Gensel did well. Obviously, I'm not comparing the talent there. Jake Gensel is, a 40-goal scorer, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at Beauvillier and how he plays, he's great at redirections. Gensel, he's really good at getting positioning in front of the net, even though he's tiny. Gensel, the aggressive forecheck. Beauvillier maybe a little bit better below the net than Gensel. Maybe, I don't know.
I'd say so. I
Yeah.
mean, I think he's a little bit more of a get your hands dirty type. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not saying Gensel didn't take hits and stuff, but
I called him a mosquito. He is a
yeah.
small little pest. He is a mosquito. Yeah, Bavillier's been great. You got to keep him in the top 6. If that means dropping Bunting down, then that's fine, and I'll talk about that later. But another person you got to keep in the top 6 is my trending up player of the week, and that's Cody Glass. So, listen, a lot of people out there don't like Cody Glass's game because he doesn't really go to the high danger spots. He doesn't put himself in dangerous positions, even though he's, doing the little things right, doing well defensively. That doesn't matter because he's not getting points, obviously. Well, he's getting points now. He's got 2 goals and a beautiful stretch pass assist on Anthony Bavillier's goal in Buffalo, which, by the way, that goal is one of my favorite kind of goals in hockey.
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful.
Beauvillier got positioning and kind of like flipped around the defender without losing speed, snipe. That's one of my favorite things. I love when little guys do that and they kind of maneuver around, get positioning, don't slow down. So clean, scratches an itch in my brain.
Yeah, beautiful. And our trending up players combined for a really good
which is
on that
fun,
one.
Right? I mean, great stretch pass, great goal, wild. The Vegas connection. He was the first ever Vegas Golden Knights draft pick, which is cool. But it's really nice to see him succeeding, just because of how his career has been. He's been bounced around. He's been, not deployed super well in Nashville. He's been maybe not given the best chances to succeed. I really like what I see. He plays with substance and he plays hard. You can never say he doesn't. The point production hasn't been there. It's there right now. He's trending up. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his last 3 games. Also, he's shooting at a 6.1 shooting percentage, which is a career low by a lot. So it should regress to the mean, hopefully. And then, then we'll see if we can. Then we'll see if we can watch. We can watch more.
Yeah,
I think there's more there with Cody Glass.
Yeah, and I think the Penguins do too. I actually last week I asked Mike Sullivan about that, just what he's thought in his extended top 6 role that he's had recently. And I think one thing, and we've talked about this with Cody Glass in the past too, he plays such a clean, like just really, really mistake-free game. His 200-foot game is good already. I mean, I would argue that there's not a better 200-foot player forward on this roster right now.
Sure.
Just in terms of, actual ability in the defensive zone. Crosby's a good 200-foot player. He hasn't exactly been great in the defensive zone.
To be fair, that's because he's carrying a lot of the team's offense. Yes. He kind of has to cheat a little bit if he
does
wants the Penguins to score at all.
Yes, but Cody Glass is a really good 200-foot player. And we've talked about how the skill set is there and everything. It's just been about the finishing. Well, now the finishing's kind of catching up. So, Mike Sullivan said the same thing. He said he thinks there's another level to Cody Glass's game, and I think in these last 3 games we're starting to see that. So, hopefully it's something he can keep up. And I do want to mention too, I mean, it's not even just the top 6 that he's producing in now. I mean, if you look at the 2 goals in the last 3 games even, I mean, one was on the power play. And the other was actually he was playing technically on the second line, on the lineup sheet against LA. But that goal was scored on a feed from Kevin Hayes. So, he's scoring, he's kind of getting it done wherever he's put in the lineup right now, which is a good thing because more versatility is better. And also because, like I said, there's another level to his game that he hasn't quite found, and he's beginning to find it. As you said, hopefully that shooting percentage kind of regresses to the mean as well. Yeah, excited to kind of see where him and Beauvillier go. I think they're kind of 2 players that have been kind of flirting with that top 6 all season. They're finally getting a little bit more of an opportunity there. So, want to do trending down?
Let's. Kelsey, who's trending down?
All right, this one feels a little bit dirty, but I'm just going to say it. My trending down is Owen Pickering.
Ow!
So as I said, this feels a little bit dirty. And I do want to start off by saying Owen Pickering is 20 years old. Yeah. I mean, he was here ahead of schedule. I don't think really anybody expected him to stick around after he was called up. He played so well in his, in those first couple games, his first handful of games, that they kind of forced their hand and he's stuck around. So credit to him. But the one thing you have to keep in mind, he's a 20-year-old defenseman. There are going to be peaks and valleys in his game at this point in his career. There's going to be some growing pains. And I do think just at this point in the season, we might be starting to see some of those growing pains. So I do want to start off with a little bit of a positive. And I mean this in a really good way. Out of all of their defensemen, he's definitely the most low event. And this kind of like this stat is just kind of like mind blowing to me when you look at this in comparison to all other Pens defensemen. So in terms of takeaways, giveaways, D-zone giveaways, he has 5 takeaways, 10 giveaways, and 5 D-zone giveaways this season. So 5 takeaways, 10 giveaways. Now let me read you the stats for the other Penguins defensemen just to give you an idea of how a low event he's been in comparison. So P.O. Joseph, and this is, again, takeaways, giveaways, D-zone giveaways in this order, and it's at 14, 40, and 27. Letang is 17, 37, 26. Matt Grzelcyk is...
really, really quickly. Did you say that P.O. Joseph has 40 giveaways?
Correct.
How many does Letang
have? 37.
Okay, continue.
So Matt Grzelcyk is 15, 39, 24. Erik Karlsson's 19, 68, 36. Marcus Pettersson is 17, 56, 37. And then Ryan Graves, who technically still has more minutes than Owen Pickering this season, is 13, 31, and 18, but he doesn't have more minutes by much. And even Jack St. Ivany and Ryan Shea. Jack St. Ivany, who has played less minutes than Owen Pickering, same with Ryan Shea, has 7, 16, and 9. Shea is 6, 16, and 9. So Owen Pickering, 5, 10, and 5. He's keeping mistakes mostly to, a minimum. There's a very low event game. He hasn't been noticeable, but not necessarily in a bad way. Now, where I'd say his game is trending down a little bit, because remember, I mean, even if a player isn't technically playing bad, this is on a week-by-week basis. We're looking at where their game is trending. So what I've just been seeing from him in recent games is he hasn't been handling the puck super well. There was a couple instances in that LA game where he missed some zone keeps. He actually whiffed on a pass at one point, at the top of the zone when the Penguins were cycling. He isn't really driving too much offense either. And again, 20 years old, there's a lot of room for his game to grow. But given that he's known as an offensive defenseman, you kind of want to see a little bit more from him on that front. And he's also just made, I think, a few more mistakes in the defensive zone as well, just with his positioning, some of his reads, some of his decisions as well. So again, I mean, this isn't one of those things. He's not playing poorly. I don't want to I want to put that out there because I don't think it's that. I just think in comparison to where we saw him even a few weeks ago, his game is trending down just a little bit, and just enough to be a little bit more noticeable. And he is playing on the third pairing with P.O. Joseph. I didn't dig into this too much today, but I'm kind of curious to see what his numbers are with P.O. Joseph in comparison to, where he was playing with Letang in the top four. So that's all I got. Feels a little dirty, but he's young. I think
I know what you mean. And like you said, he's 20 years old. He's also like a long, lean guy. And those defensemen usually take a good hot minute to develop. So like you said, he was ahead of schedule earlier. Now he's kind of back to what I think most of us expected from him. He's, like you said, not playing poorly. He's just not like, you look at him on the ice and you have to look at him on the ice because even if he's not playing low event hockey, he's so noticeable for the right reasons. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It feels a little dirty. My guy also feels kind of dirty because he's not particularly playing poorly. He's just not scoring anymore. So my trending down player of the week is Michael Bunting.
Ow!
Again, feels dirty. He's not really playing poorly, but there are some concerning statistics, some concerning numbers. So first off, in his last 6 games, he has no goals and 2 assists. We all knew that his hot streak on the power play would cool off. I don't know that I at least expected it to cool off this much. Figured it'd be at least half a point per game in the low stretches. But he's not, and that's okay. Because again, he's not like playing poorly. He's just not scoring. I really do want to keep saying that because, like you said about Pickering, he's not playing badly. It's just that he's not doing what on the score sheet what we're expecting him to do.
Right.
Also, he does everything at 5 on the power play, which is fine because the Penguins' power play is still top 5 in the league. I think they were 5th last time I saw, tied for 5th with Vegas. But if you want to look at that really quick, well,
I'll look at that while you're talking.
It might actually be better because over the last 3 games, I think I wrote down they went 3 for 4 on the power play against Buffalo, 0 for 2 against Washington,
Zuko, stop.
1 for 1 against LA. So
sorry.
That's okay. They're 4 for their last 7 power plays, 4 for 7. That's good.
All right, let me see here. I have it. Sorry.
Okay.
They are 4th.
Yeah. Okay. About where I figured.
Yeah.
What are they at?
They're at 27.1%. Vegas is right behind them at 27%.
Yeah, I know because it was pretty funny. I was doing the special teams report for Vegas's game against the Blues on Monday, and they were tied for 5th, which was pretty funny because just year to year changes. Funny. But yeah, so Michael Bunting does everything on the power play. He has 13 power play points. 8 of those are goals, 5 of those are assists. 5 on 5, he only has 5 goals and 8 assists. Which is fine if he's producing on the power play, but right now he's not. And like I said, it's not that he's playing badly, it's just that he's not producing. Please don't come for me.
I think on a good team, Michael Bunting's like a perfect third line player. Like, I still maintain that BLT line was so good for like just that.
It was
short
sizzling for the full
time.
4 periods they were together.
It was sizzling. But
sizzling.
I would.
I was actually thinking about that, Kelsey. We talked about this a little bit last night, I think, about maybe it wouldn't be so bad to move Michael Bunting down to the third line.
Yeah.
Especially with Beauvillier playing so well right now. And we're saying this when Raquel returns to the team. This is not do this next game. No.
Yeah.
This is when Raquel returns to the team. I think you could I'm just spitballing. You could run Bavillier with Sid and Raquel. You could try Cody Glass with Gino and Brian Rust.
I agree.
I think that would be a decent line. And then, I mean, listen, a third line of Michael Bunting, Kevin Hayes, and Philip Tomasino.
Not bad.
Not bad. And then you could have O'Connor on the fourth line with Lizotte and Achari. And before you come for me, oh my God, listen. He's not scoring right now. He's still using his speed and his body. He can do that on the fourth line. And if he finds a scoring touch, he can bring that to the fourth line.
Yeah.
And with all respect to the fabulous mustache, Matt Nieto's still not doing a lot.
No.
Not much of anything. Even though he didn't particularly have a bad game against Los Angeles, he didn't have a good one because I legitimately did not see him on the ice once.
Yeah.
But the stat sheet says he was on the ice, so that's, whatever. Yeah, so that's all I got on Michael Bunting.
Yeah.
Again, not particularly playing badly, just not scoring. So, if you want to start scoring, Mike, I will gladly eat my words. No, no. Yeah,
All right.
let's talk the fire sale.
Well, yeah, that's
It's
actually a good
definitely happening.
segue. That's actually a good segue because you brought up Drew O'Connor, and he's obviously one of the names that are out there. There have been some rumors, and folks, I do want to emphasize, fire sale, take that with a grain of salt.
No, it's not a fire sale. It's not a fire sale.
It's not, I don't think it's going to be what people expect. I know there's rumors about Carlson there. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I think a lot of things were taken wildly out of context. And, I don't expect them to trade Erik Karlsson by the trade deadline. Maybe that's a move that happens over the summer, but
it's not happening by the trade deadline.
I would be very, very surprised. And it's not like Erik Karlsson is flaunting that he wants to go somewhere else.
No.
I mean, that's not the case at all, despite what you may have read. He's happy with the Penguins. Him being open to waiving a no movement clause or whatever has been reported is a whole lot different than saying, get me out of here. So
I'm sure a lot of players would be open to waiving a no movement clause. I don't think that needs to control Penguins news cycles. Sorry, I think it's dumb.
I'm right with you there. So when you hear fire sale, don't think Erik Karlsson. Let's tamper our expectations a little bit. Kind of dampen those down.
I mean, listen, I think of 4 players that I would put money on them being moved at the deadline. If it doesn't happen, it's not going to blow me away if it doesn't happen. I just think it probably will. Pettersson, I feel like he's probably as good as gone. Doesn't matter if they run the road trip and win all the rest of their games. I don't think it matters. I think the value that you could get, even though settle your expectations, you're not getting a first like Philly got for Sean Walker last year.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Right? I know Colorado paid I know. Anyway, that's not happening. Matt Grzelcyk, I would expect, just because he's smashing his career highs in points. He can really run a power play. He's a puck moving defenseman. He's on a 1-year contract. He's not going to cost a lot. He's pretty much gone, right? I mean,
I would think so. The only caveat I would kind of offer there is the Penguins' power play is not going to be functioning the same without him.
Oh,
and if they
Lord,
are really actually, if they're going into 4 nations and they're in a good playoff position, that might be somebody they might consider holding on to just to help them in the stretch run. But I would agree with you. I think it's a good 75 to 80% chance.
Yeah, I would give it that. I think Anthony Beauvillier is probably going to be gone because, especially since he's been having, the good year, the good stretch of games in the top 6. I think that's probably going to be attractive to teams, especially because he's on a 1-year contract, he's not making a lot of money, and he's not going to cost a lot to acquire.
Yeah.
How many teams can you think of right now that could use a player like him on their third line?
Oh, a lot. I mean, especially those teams that are hanging around, like third place in the division and the wild card race. They might need that extra depth player to kind of put them, over the edge. So
I think Anthony Beauvillier would make a great Golden Knight. I'm
I
not just
wouldn't,
saying
I
that
wouldn't
because I'm
disagree
familiar with
there.
his game and wouldn't mind that. Cole Schwint is week to week with lower body injury now, and I was very wrong about Alex Holtz. He has been not great.
Yeah, I could see him landing somewhere like Ottawa too. Maybe even
Maybe.
Montreal, especially if Montreal's in the push.
I don't think Montreal. I
I don't
really
know.
don't think they're gonna buy this year either way.
Yeah, but is it? I don't think so either. But it's one of those things.
I
Once again, I think a lot of this very much depends on where teams are at Four Nations. Because don't forget, I mean, there's almost, and I've read
There's like
this
a
elsewhere
10-day break
too.
there.
Yeah, and there's almost like 2 trade deadlines.
Yeah,
I think
which is
like
exciting.
yeah, it is because Four Nations I think is going to be a barometer for a lot of teams to really assess where they're at prior to the trade deadline because the trade deadline's March 7th. The time between, return to play after Four Nations and the trade deadline isn't all that great. I think it's only about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I think, if Montreal's in the hunt there, buying quote unquote somebody like Anthony Beauvillier isn't going to cost them an arm and a leg. They're not going to
No,
go
it's
out and
not.
get, like a legit young player that's going to help them, for years. It's not going to be like they're buying big, but I could see them buying, buying on someone like Anthony Beauvillier, especially with, the draft cupboard they have and just some of the assets they have. I think there's some that are expendable there, but
You want to do something interesting really quick, Kelsey?
yeah, go for it.
Where do you think Marcus Pettersson's going to go? Make a wild guess and just.
I still think he's going to Vancouver.
Stop.
I mean, I know that's the standard answer. I know that that's kind of what's been rumored for months. That's exactly why it's not going to happen. We talked about that in the last episode. I think Winnipeg's a nice wild card there too. Those would probably be my top 2 teams if I had to pick them. But I just really think this has been, Vancouver and Pittsburgh have been just dancing for a couple seasons now. I mean, this goes back a couple seasons. And obviously, Jim Rutherford's the GM over there. He thinks very highly of Marcus Pettersson. And Vancouver needs left-handed defensemen. I'm going to still jump on the
Vancouver
train.
needs an exorcism.
They do. But, if they're in the hunt, I think if they keep falling off, maybe not. But, if we're approaching Four Nations and they're still, right there, I still think they're going to be buyers because they're going to sell off guys like JT Miller. I don't think Elias Pettersson's going anywhere personally.
He shouldn't.
But, it's they're still going to be trying to push to make the playoffs. And you can probably now, in terms of we talked about making sure we dampen expectations. Again, Marcus Pettersson isn't going to give you a first round pick. It doesn't matter what team he goes to. He is not getting you a first round pick. I would be extremely surprised. Even if they got like a conditional first in 2026 or whatever. I don't see any of that happening. I think probably the best you can hope for in the case of Pettersson is a second round pick and maybe either a prospect or a reclamation project player. And the same ilk as Philip Tomasino, Cody Glass, those kinds of guys. But go ahead. Where do you think he's going to go?
Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg. I think they're tired of being first round exits. I think if they hold it together, they have all the makings of a very strong Western Conference team. There's a bunch of good Western Conference teams, so I don't want to speculate how far they go, whatever. But I think Winnipeg would make a lot of sense. What else would make a lot of sense, and this is kind of conditional, is Minnesota. I just think Minnesota would make some sense because their defensemen keep dropping like flies. It's legitimately a cycle of a top 4 defenseman getting hurt He gets healthy. He comes back. In that same game, a different top 4 defenseman goes down. Brodin, Spurgeon, Faber, they've all missed stretches. I think Middleton's missed a couple games. I don't think it would be a bad idea for Minnesota to try to get another top 4 defenseman just in case one gets hurt. I mean, and then God forbid you have a really good defenseman playing on your third pairing. Darn. I don't know. They just like to
Yeah.
play good defensive, low event hockey. That's what they try to do. Doesn't always work, but that's what they try to do. I think Marcus Pettersson would probably help that. But I think it's going to be Winnipeg.
Okay. And I got to ask you too, just in that sense. So I
Sure.
think one of the reasons I'm still sticking on Vancouver is because this is still, a two-way dance. And I just think Vancouver has the kinds of things that Pittsburgh would be looking for in a return.
Like what?
Obviously, Niels Hoglander has
Don't
been
say that.
thrown a lot.
Stop
I
that.
know I'm still
Stop
on that
that.
train. But go ahead. What I want to ask you is if he would go to Winnipeg or if he would go to Minnesota, do you kind of have maybe what a return would look like in mind?
I have really not a lot of concept of Minnesota's prospect pool outside of Zeev Boyim and like Liam Ogren, who both would not be
No,
coming in a return for Marcus
absolutely not.
Pettersson.
No.
I really don't know. I don't know. Really a ton of Winnipeg prospects either outside of Jaeger and like
Well,
Brad Lambert that they took, but again,
yeah.
not coming back. I don't know.
Well, maybe even moving away from prospects, like,
Sure.
is there somebody on the roster that you think that, maybe the Penguins would be
It's tough
interested
because
in?
all of their young players have high value.
Yeah.
Like Winnipeg, Cole Perfetti, high value.
Hmm.
Minnesota, Marco Rossi. It's not going to happen because he's a good player and he has high value. I know he's like always in the trade talks for some reason, but he shouldn't be. And if he is, you're not going to get him for Marcus Pettersson.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. It's really tough, honestly. I could see it being like just a pick and then
Yeah.
maybe some cap dump like I don't know, from Winnipeg. Maybe like Vlad Nemesnikov or something.
Yeah.
I really
Something
don't
like
know.
that. What I could see.
Follow or something. I'm not saying these are particularly
Yeah.
great returns, but again, like
Yeah.
you said, expectations lower them.
I think too, something to consider maybe is, the reason I say Vancouver is because I think there's some players you can point to specifically that you say, oh, this is what Marcus Pettersson's worth. If you trade Marcus Pettersson alone, this is what you could get for him. But I think if you're talking, a deal with somebody like Winnipeg or Minnesota, that might be a situation where you could maybe see a bigger package involved, not just Pettersson. Because if they really want to go out and get somebody like a Perfetti, which that's a high value player, obviously.
Right, but
I think
Winnipeg, why would Winnipeg do that?
I mean, I think they have enough prospect talent on the verge, and I think there's still enough talent around that roster to maybe risk something like that. But I also think it would depend on what also would be going to Winnipeg with Marcus Pettersson, because I do think you could see a situation where the Penguins do move out one of their prospects. In a bigger package with Marcus Pettersson. I still think it's more likely that Marcus Pettersson goes somewhere just, for a straight return, but I wouldn't rule out there being a bigger package, I guess is what I'm trying to say, with one of those teams.
Here's the thing. I just don't think those teams would want to do that. Like, because that severely limits their lineup going into this playoffs, who they would be buying Marcus Pettersson for. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, if Winnipeg moved out Cole Perfetti right now, then I guess you put Nino Niederreiter in the top 6, which is fine. Nino Niederreiter's a decent player, but it just limits your depth offense. Cole Perfetti, I mean, he was drafted as a center. Vladislav Nemesnikov is not going to be their second line center forever. And
Yeah.
also, no, I'm not going to say that. Because every time I say that maybe the Winnipeg Jets should get a second line center, then Vladislav Nemesnikov goes off and scores like a disgusting, nasty snipe
Yeah.
and makes me look like an idiot. I just, playoffs, depth is nice. 2 dynamic top lines are nice. I don't even remember why I started this. I don't think that I just
fine.
don't think I don't think Marcus Pettersson is going to be part of that kind of big return type thing, because the type of teams that would want a Marcus Pettersson probably don't really want to give up a good player for a package back because they're trying to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I
That's
know?
why.
Nothing. I'm not a GM.
I mean,
I
mean, I'm not either by any stretch. And I honestly like trade value and stuff. It's never been my strong suit in analysis and stuff like that. But it's one of those things. The only thing with Pettersson is just if he's going for straight value of like, what is Marcus Pettersson worth? I think Marcus Pettersson alone is probably worth about a second round pick and one of those reclamation projects like a Philip Tomasino, like a Cody Glass, or like a mid-tier prospect. I mean, I don't think you're going to see much bigger of a return for him. So that's just my 2 cents. But you mentioned there's 4 players. You named 3. So you named Marcus Pettersson, Anthony Beauvillier, Matt Grzelcyk.
Who I think will go to Florida, by the way. I think that'd be a great fit.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that last week with just
I'll mention it again.
Another power play guy. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like that. But who's that 4th player? Is it Drew O'Connor or is it?
I think it's probably Drew O'Connor. Maybe they'll move another bottom tier defenseman. I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably Drew O'Connor because I don't know. Here's the thing.
Teams are calling on him apparently.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If the teams are calling on him, they're not calling to offer a second round pick. They're probably not calling to offer a third round pick.
No.
I just feel like a lot of teams out there have a Drew O'Connor. They've got a big guy who can skate, but who isn't really consistent with his scoring enough to warrant like a second or a third round pick.
Yeah.
I don't know. This team really gives me a lot of fits because there's just so much about it that makes me want to shake someone and just ask, like, what is going to happen? I'm so curious. I'm interested to see how it all pans out. Of course, I'll be watching from a little bit of afar, but still very interested, especially because they're still technically in this wild card hunt.
Yeah.
They could make the playoffs. I don't.
Yeah, and hey, I mean, they have 4 pretty winnable games coming up.
They do.
So
they always lose them.
Yeah,
the Anaheim Ducks. I'm sure I don't need to remind people what happened.
Oh, yeah, that's still a sore spot, but
for a lot of people, it is. I still kind of think it's funny.
Yeah, true, but they have Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, Utah, and then they have a few pretty big games.
Seattle just pumped them.
The thing is, though, the Penguins did. I think the Penguins were the better team in that game.
No, I agree.
And it's probably one of those games that they should have won. I mean, but they got to come out on the other side of those one-goal games. Yeah, that's true. But after that they got Nashville, and then they have 3 big divisional games against New Jersey, the Rangers,
who they are historically very good against. By the way, New Jersey.
Absolutely, but I think they need to pad some of these points in the next 5 games. You can even include Nashville in there, even though they're back home for Nashville on the 1st. But anyway, this team could find itself in the playoff race. But the whole point of this whole discussion is that we're running over. But the whole point is, I wouldn't call Marcus Pettersson, Matt Grzelcyk, Anthony Beauvillier, and Drew O'Connor a fire sale.
That's not a fire sale.
That's not a fire sale.
Is if they trade Rust, Raquel,
Eric
Beauvillier, not Beauvillier, Pettersson, Carlson.
Yeah.
You trade. No, that's a fire sale.
You ask Letang to
4 guys. One who's a top 4 defenseman. and the other who are like depth pieces on a good roster. Those
Yeah.
aren't. That's not a fire sale. Please stop calling it a fire sale. It's not a fire sale.
Yeah. And just take the things you're reading about Eric Carlson with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and look where the
That's all I'm
sources
gonna
are too. Like,
Yeah.
make sure if it's Elliot Friedman, then maybe you can start to say, "Whoa, fire sale." It's not Elliot Friedman or Chris Johnston or
Especially from a national outlet perspective.
Yeah.
I think it'd be different if there were some local reporters like corroborating the same thing, but I don't see any local reporters saying fire sale. It's they're going to be selling. Fire sale is a strong word.
Yeah.
And I do want to just point out with Drew O'Connor real quick too. Now, in terms of expectations, we already said Marcus Pettersson. I think Beauvillier probably, if he continues to produce, maybe a 3rd round pick. But I'd say probably you're looking at a 4th round pick ish. Matt Grzelcyk, I could see
especially
a
since you don't
3rd
need to
round
retain
pick.
salary on Beauvillier because he's so cheap.
Yeah. So I could see a ceiling of a 3rd round pick for Beauvillier. I could see a 3rd round pick for Grzelcyk because
I could see a
teams need
2nd with
that.
salary retention.
Yeah, I could see that too. So we'll see. But in terms of Drew O'Connor, I think it's one of those things too. And this is the last thing I'll say about that because I know we do have to log off here.
Our bad, guys. One of
we
these days,
really
we'll
like
actually say. One of these days. Kelsey, it was so funny. I sat down, you said, listen, I know we said this every week, but this time I really think, I was like, yeah, no, we're going to do it this time.
No, we didn't. We
did not.
We spent a lot of time on the week in review. We were just so, Ned's whole thing was just crazy. But anyway,
yes.
We spent about a half
guys.
hour
if
on
you're
the
stuck
first
around,
segment.
praise be, you're strong. Anyway.
Listen to this on a long commute or 2 long commutes, whatever. But anyway, so last thing I'll say, the thing about Drew O'Connor, and now we've talked about this on this show before. I think my personal take is that I think there's a little bit of overvaluing with a player like him because yes, he has size. Yes, he has speed. But what does he actually do with that size and speed that's, helping the team win at the end of the day? Because he's still somebody you need to produce in the kinds of roles that he's been playing, and he hasn't been doing that very much. So in terms of trade value, I think if you're the Penguins, something to consider here is it's not players like Noel Acciari and Matt Nieto, per se, that are blocking guys like Rutger McGroarty, guys like, Tristan Brose is going to be out for a while. He's missed a big chunk of games here for Wilkes-Barre. He has mono and he's kind of in recovery for that. So I wouldn't expect to see him this season. But, guys like McGroarty, guys like Koivunen, a player like Drew O'Connor is the kind of player that is blocking those guys from getting the roles that they would need to play in on this team in order to, reach their potential and be successful.
I think Matt Nieto is blocking Ponomarev.
Yeah, I do think that
other than that, I agree with what you're saying 100%. Because if you throw Rutger McGroarty on the 4th line over someone like Matt Nieto, I just think it would be a lot better for his development if he was playing 1st line minutes in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah. And if Drew O'Connor is staying on the roster, if they decide to keep him around, they don't trade him, if they re-sign him this summer, those are the kinds of players that are blocking the development of Rutger McGroarty. Because
and I know a lot of people are going to say, but he's young. Yeah, but
he's 26. He's not that young. 25, 26, whatever he is.
26 is young, Kelsey. No.
It is. Listen, I'm almost 30, so.
Oh my God, Kelsey, if you were on this NHL team, players would be calling you decrepit and the oldest player to touch the ice.
Correct. People act like Kevin Hayes is decrepit, but he's what, 32?
He's like 32.
So, anyway.
My mom always takes so much offense to this. Especially when Jeff Carter was playing last year. She'd be watching games and they'd be like, man, here comes old man Jeff Carter, the oldest man to ever touch the ice. He's a freak of nature. It's a miracle of science. He's 39. My mom was like, I'm going to find these people and really give him a piece of my mind. 39 is young.
But I mean, in terms of hockey,
no, I know. Obviously, in
Drew
terms of hockey,
O'Connor,
yes, the prime is
yeah,
behind. But in terms of just age, my God, just wait until these players hit 50. The aches they will
yeah,
feel.
right. But Drew O'Connor, I think he's at the age where you see most of what you're going to see from him at the NHL level. A lot of people were expecting a breakout this year. It didn't happen. I think this is a player that you move on from. And a player that you move on from in order to make headway for those younger guys to come in and make an impact.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
I
my
think
2 cents.
they definitely need to decide right now if they're going to move on from him or if they're going to resign him, because if he walks versus if you can get like a 5th round pick for him. I know a 5th round pick doesn't mean a ton, but still it's better than nothing.
Yeah. I could see a fourth, maybe like a 2026 fourth,
I
a
just
third
don't
or
think
something,
that
but
because there's a lot of Drew O'Connors around the league.
yeah,
There's
I see that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no concept of player value. Maybe he'll go for a
Yeah.
first and a second, and I'll be like, "What? Okay, well, I'm gonna get flamed on the internet." I just legitimately have no concept of player value
Yeah.
anymore. Honestly, like,
It's just so hard. It's so
yeah,
inconsistent, honestly. Like it really is. Year
yeah.
by
If it was a
year,
little bit
you
more
see,
consistent, it's just
yeah. That's
contracts.
why that's why I mean I'm gonna catch heat for this from some corners of Penn's Twitter, but that's why, when people talk about the Gensel trade, it just drives me crazy because it's like, yeah, maybe they should have gotten a actual first for their best winger, but you know what? The way that wingers are even valued at times during the trade deadline, and even the best ones, the consistency at
Yeah,
which these guys
no,
are dealt there's no consistency. Like there
yeah,
just isn't. And if you consider the fact that he was a UFA, you got a
mhm.
NHL ready prospect package for him. You got Michael Bunting. You got that conditional first, and that ended up being Harrison Brunick. I'll take that. It's tough. It's tough at the end of the day. Same thing with Marcus Pettersson. The other thing with Marcus Pettersson to consider is that he's going to be probably the most coveted defenseman at the trade deadline, which
I
might drive up his value a little bit. But
disagree. I think maybe like Ivan Provorov might be.
yeah, but
Just
rumor has it that he might
right
not even
spot.
be on the trade block anymore because Columbus is in wild card contention.
Yeah,
So
but I think if they're still in wild card contention, they could do what the Capitals did last year
yeah,
and sell and still make it.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Don't listen to me. But one
No,
more
I
thing
I
to
kind of agree.
consider: a lot of people, like you were saying about the wingers, a lot of people keep bringing up that Sean Monahan was traded to the Jets for a first round pick. Sean Monahan's a center.
Yeah,
It's just that centers are more valuable than wingers. It's just how it is. And especially with Gensel, honestly, this is revisionist history. A lot of people thought the Canes were going to make it
oh
to the Cup final. A lot of people
yeah,
thought that. Maybe Kyle Dubas thought that too.
yeah.
And if he did,
Can't blame him.
yeah, because go back and try to find some predictions from, your favorite writers, whatever, because a lot of things I read, people were very bullish on Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, like I've said this before, but they ended up getting Harrison Brunick out of that pick.
Yeah.
And
So,
Harrison Brunick was, projected as a first round pick anyway before his injury prior to the draft. So in essence, they ended up kind of getting a first round pick anyway.
that is a good way to look at it. Healthy way to look at it. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we're running over an hour and 20 here.
We are
So
so
we should
sorry.
probably sign off. But thanks for hanging with us today. Again, it was a long one. One of these days we are going to cut this down, but we just have so much to talk about. Maybe this is the juncture where we consider making this a more than once a week sort of thing, but we'll revisit that. So
Yeah, throwing this out there, maybe the people can comment on that. Maybe
yeah,
we could do one episode on like week in review and that stuff, and then we could do another episode on around the league trade talk and just kind of cut it in half.
Yeah. Especially with this time of year.
Yeah, just something to look at until the trade deadline, especially because of that Four Nations soft trade deadline, like you talked about. I don't know, it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But we value your feedback. So just, drop a comment on YouTube. Let us know on socials. And just as a reminder, you can find the Pucks and That podcast on socials. Please give us a follow. Spread the word, spread the content. We'd appreciate it. But on X, it's Pucks_Nat_pod. Blue Sky is the same thing without the underscores. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify. And yeah, subscribe and give us your feedback. If you want to hear us more than once a week, if you'd rather not have 1 hour and 25-minute episode and you'd rather have, 2 half-hour to 45-minute episodes, we can definitely make that work for you.
You'd rather watch 2 episodes of a TV show than a full-length feature film. Or what would have been considered a full-length feature film back in the 90s.
Yeah. We'll call it like a Disney movie length film. This is about a Disney movie length film, like a Aladdin.
This is like the exact runtime of Trick or Treat or a Saw movie.
Okay, that's fair too. This is a horror show sometimes.
Yeah. No.
This team is a horror show sometimes, but
yeah, and I mean, especially when I go outside, that's basically a saw trap. I mean, I've legitimately seen that as a saw trap.
So, anyway, thanks for hanging with us for the near hour and a half today. Again, I'm Kelsey Zarmas from the Hockey News, Hannah Kirkell, now with Vegas Hockey Now. So we're signing off. We'll let you know if anything changes as far as the format. Right now, it's just every Wednesday. But in the meantime, catch up on some Pens games, keep an eye on the trade market, and stay out of trouble in that.